All right, it is time for a bit of a film check-in. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be a sort of wrap-up or recap of the 8 new-to-me films that I watched in January 2022. I definitely enjoy doing videos about film and movies, and I definitely want to do more of that for this year. I don't know exactly what form that's going to take, but given that I take January off and I watch stuff in January, and here we are in February, why not recap how January went for film watching? Felt like a good place to start, right? And yeah, let's get to it. It's a lot of movies, so I'm going to share a little bit about each of the films, why I watched it, and some thoughts on it, like that kind of thing. So let's see how this goes. First up, we have White Squall. This is, I guess I'll start with why I watched it. This is directed by Ridley Scott. One of my goals last year was to watch films directed by Ridley Scott. He's one of my favorite directors, and I have some films that I haven't seen, including White Squall. I watched this on January 1st, and I had rented it before the end of the year, so I was thinking about maybe considering that I had watched it last year, but I'm not. I'm going to make it part of this year. So anyway, White Squall, directed by Ridley Scott. This came out in the 90s. I can't remember what year. 96. Okay, so there we go. And it centers on, it's actually like a coming of age type story and adventure and sort of thrilling film. It's based on a true story, which I did not know going in, and it's based on a book, which I did not know going in. And it centers on this character who played Bailey on Party of Five. I can't remember the actor's name. And he decides to do like a year abroad, and he does a year of sort of schooling on a sailboat. So he learns to sail as well as gets a year's worth of education on the boat. This is definitely a male coming of age type story. I think it was a couple years, I think it's about 3 years after Dead Poets Society, and I found like there were definitely some similar things going on in the two films. I love Dead Poets Society and it's arts related, so like it will always have my heart. This one had a bit, I don't know if it's because of the sailboat thing or what, but and it was also, this one's set in like the 60s, but there was definitely some male posturing and stuff that was a little uncomfortable, and the gender dynamics are not great for this, but it is a mostly male cast, and so the women characters are not, they're there for a purpose in most cases, and so it's a little male gazy like that. In terms of the sort of like coming of age adventure kind of stuff, it was really interesting, and I do like the friendships that developed. That was really good, and that was like that's always a kind of like with an ensemble cast type situation. That's something that I always enjoy looking for. But then of course, given the title, there's some pretty dramatic elements to this one as well, which I wasn't expecting, although I should have been. I'm actually really surprised that I hadn't seen this, given that it's directed by Ridley Scott and it's set at sea. I love films set at sea or underwater, so I am glad that I watched it. I think it would have been, I think, probably better to watch it like earlier than now, because now I see it from like, that it's so male focused, so that's a little, I just, after years and years and years and years and years of watching film, it's like I've seen that a lot. So regardless of whether it's done well, it's just I've seen it a lot. So, but I am glad that I watched it. I do want to continue to work through Ridley Scott's works that I haven't seen. I only made it through one new one last year, which was The Duelists, which was from the 70s, his first feature film. And that actually, for a first feature, was extraordinary, especially the cinematography. Wow. It's more of a historical drama than anything else. And it's not to be confused with The Last Duel, which came out last year, which was based on a nonfiction book, which I want to read and then watch the movie. So I will continue to watch films directed by Ridley Scott. It just is and will be. Yeah, so one more done, even if it wasn't done last year, it was done this year. Next up, I also watched No Time to Die. This is the most recent James Bond film. It came out at the end of last year. This one I feel rather complicated about for a lot of different reasons. The gender dynamics of James Bond have never been good. I do feel like they made some choices to try and make strides, and some of that failed and some of it succeeded. I also feel like there's a really I really appreciated the campaign by Changing Faces UK that they had called Not Your Villain, which came out around this time, which was about visible differences and how often that is what villains are depicted with visible differences. So this one felt complicated because that's actually something that's part of not only this one, but lots of Bond films and lots of films over the years. I'll put the Changing Faces UK Instagram down below. Highly recommend checking them out. So this one, and this was long. This was 2 hours and 40 minutes, I think. And I think it was like 2:30 to the credits. I don't know. I wasn't terribly invested. I was, glad to have seen it. I've seen all of the Bond movies, and there's some that I like with Daniel Craig. I love Casino Royale, and I quite enjoyed Spectre. And I think each of the Bonds, there's at least one that maybe not each of them. But anyway, so I watched all of them for Skyfall, and I didn't terribly enjoy Spectre. So it's, for me, the Daniel Craig ones I like are Skyfall and Casino Royale. But I don't know. I just kind of feel neither here nor there on this one. I didn't feel terribly invested. I didn't feel terribly suspenseful. I definitely saw some things coming, and I just, there wasn't, and there were some things that bothered me, and there weren't many things that I enjoyed. So, it's a bit of after watching those two films and recognizing how male heavy they were, I decided to actively choose 2 films in a row that had a female protagonist, or which I thought had a female protagonist, just to sort of shift the energy. And this might be something that I do throughout the year to sort of keep things a bit more even in terms of what I'm watching, and also to see, which are the films that I like, and also to see which are the films that aren't what they say they are, or show things differently than they are, which I'll get to a bit in a second. So the next film I picked specifically because it had a female protagonist. It's also a book to film adaptation, and I have read the book, and that is Ophelia. So this is based on the book by Lisa Klein. It came out, I think, the film came out around 2018. It stars Daisy Ridley, who played Rey in the new Star Wars films. It also stars Naomi Watts and Clive Owen. So, okay, Clive Owen, I will have to say, he was not the best in this. I will just say that. But Daisy Ridley was amazing. And the premise of this, Ophelia, is that it's Ophelia's story. So Ophelia from Hamlet, is seen in a certain light, in a certain way, and, her story is told, of course, through Hamlet, because she's a character in Hamlet. So this is the idea of what's her story, or what could have been her story, and how could that be different than what we see, and how can that be seen from her perspective. It's about her story from her perspective. And I gotta say, I read the book, but I didn't love the book. This film was great. It was so good. Oh my goodness. The art direction was amazing. It has this sort of historical feel to it. It is historical. Well, it is Shakespeare and historical. Anyway, and she's also like a handmaiden to Gertrude, who's Hamlet's mom, but she's of, everyone else is sort of a, I don't know, a particular class of which she is not. There was something, I gotta say, there wasn't a huge connection between it and the book. It's been a couple years since I read the book, and they're definitely, I'm like, yeah, that happened. But there were a lot of things I'm like, wow, I don't remember these connecting pieces at all, or that character, or those kinds of things. But I don't really care, because this was brilliant. And I had hesitated from seeing this just because I hadn't seen very many reviews on it. And I'm like, why did I do that? This was a movie that I was anticipating seeing, even though I didn't love the book. I wanted to see it. I like Daisy Ridley. I love the idea of it. It looks gorgeous. It's been on Netflix for at least a year before I ended up actively choosing to watch it. And honestly, I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled. It was beautiful. I was captivated right from the get-go. The only thing that I would say that wasn't excellent was that or wasn't great, was Clive Owen's acting wasn't great. He plays Hamlet's uncle and Gertrude's like new husband. I can't remember what the character name is. Hamlet's not my favorite of the Shakespeare's, but you can't, like, you just, I've seen so many versions of Hamlet, like, I just know the story, right? But anyway, so this is great. Definitely recommend it, especially if you like stories about women and women telling their stories. This was excellent. So it exactly hit what I was trying to get, and also ended up being a great film overall. I also thought, because of the cover, like all of the posters and all of the promos, I thought I would pick Monster Hunter with Mila Jovovich, but I would have to say this is actually a bit more of a two-hander, because that's not the best one. Let's see if I can get another one. See, all of the other ones are more like this, right, Mila? Look, there's someone over there. But the truth is, Tony Jaa is very, very much like, it's really mostly the two of them throughout the entire film. So I was a little surprised at that. It's actually quite unusual for that to be the case. Often, if it's a dual hander or an ensemble, the women aren't necessarily at the forefront, but Mila really is. So anyway, this was so much fun, even with that. This was so much fun. This is based on a video game. It feels like it's based on a video game. The music makes it feel like it was based on a video game. It's not believable, like, in the slightest. This actually had a pretty surprising extended cast too. I think Ron Perlman's also in it. I had a blast with this. I actually really liked how Mila Jovovich and Tony Jaa's characters sort of, like, how they interacted and stuff like that. There's lots of action, lots of fun stuff, lots of but a lot of it is chaos, and the action is just, you gotta suspend your disbelief, because it's like, for the action, for some of the plot, for a lot of it, but I thought it was really, really fun, and so I'm really happy that I watched it, although I would say it's a dual male-female protagonist, so I definitely enjoyed it, though. It was a good fit. I ended up watching it on Prime. Ophelia was on Netflix. This is always on Canadian services. We don't always get the same as the US service. I don't remember what I watched next. Okay, so this one I'm not going to talk too much about, because I certainly do not want to spoil it, and I did happen to watch Matrix Resurrections, and I'm really glad that I did. The Matrix is just one of those just, I don't know what the right term would be for a movie that just was unlike anything else at the time, and the sequels, not so much, but the Matrix itself, like, just hit all of the right marks and just was so iconic and so amazing. And I wasn't sure what to expect from a sequel, especially this much later. I really enjoyed it. I found it tense. I will say that. I found it tense. I found that there was some surprising choices, and I did find I didn't always understand the logic of things, but the things that I didn't understand the logic of were the same for the original Matrix, so I'm not worried about it. And that's also not my focus. I'm interested more in the characters. So I definitely, this was good. That was good. I enjoyed it a lot. And next up, I watched some book to film adaptations, as I am off to do. I have like an extraordinary number of films that I haven't seen the adaptations of, and I'm actually now going to be also including plays, which I did for some things, but didn't realize how many plays I've watched over the past year. So yeah, and I think with plays, my favorite method is to read it, watch an adaptation, and then read it again. And I can't remember if that's what's going to happen with this one or not, because I've read it more than once. No, I think I need to read it. Did I read it again? I can't remember. Anyway, A Doll's House. So the play is by Ibsen. I watched the 1973 version, film version, that stars Jane Fonda in the lead as, what's her character's name? I can't remember her character's name. So this is a great play. The play is so good. And I thought this film adaptation was pretty good. There were a couple things I was a little like, not quite. I feel like it had been a while since I read it. I think I read this at the end of last year as a reread. I'm reading all of the works of Ibsen, so this one is one that I've now read twice. Yeah, I think I read it last year, and so I read it twice and then watched it, which is not my favorite format, but I can't go back. Last November or whatever. Was it? I can't remember. Anyway, so this was actually quite good. It is a great story. It is a really great story that centers on a couple, but mostly Jane Fonda's character. And I honestly, I feel like it's so good to let the story unfold that I don't want to spoil it. So I'm really happy that I watched it. I think I watched it on Canopy, which is a great service. If you check if your library has access to Canopy, because there's so many like classics or art house or festival type films that are there, and they have several adaptations of Ibsen's works. So I think there's even another Doll's House. And this one was really good. It's the first adaptation that I've seen of the play, and it's like there is some very powerful moments and scenes that I sometimes I was like, oh wow, that didn't get quite the punch that I thought it was going to get, but it did for me very much clarify some of the relationships between the secondary characters that I didn't quite understand when I read it. Sometimes I think it was because they're like the film actually shows scenes where the play, I think, sometimes has a before and after. I think it does take a few liberties and adds a couple of scenes in there. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that, but that was my general feeling. So anyway, I really enjoyed that. And then I watched Frankenstein. So this is from 2007. It was on Prime, Frankenstein with a female lead, and I could I gotta say, and this is again me watching films with female leads, right? So we had the Monster Hunter and then Matrix, but then I also had a couple rewatches, and then so I wanted to go back to watching films with female leads. So Doll's House is absolutely female lead, and then so Frankenstein with the female lead as Dr. Frankenstein. This is from 2007. I watched it on Prime. It is a British production, and I could tell like very quickly that this was like a direct to video or a made for TV type film. Like it just like I was very surprised that very quickly it read that way, and it did. It also felt earlier than the like maybe early 2000s to me in terms of it looked to like SD. I was very surprised. Unfortunately it was not great, but in terms of like a 90-minute horror movie that's made for TV direct to VOD, yeah, it was enjoyable from that perspective. It did have some creepy body horror type stuff that I was not expecting, and it had a couple of different turns on some of the ideas, but it also had a lot of nods to the original story and the original film. So I enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. And so, but once I settled into like, oh, this is more like a TV movie, then I just enjoyed myself and enjoyed watching it. I will have to say that I was a little disappointed that given that it had a female lead for Dr. Frankenstein, one of the main like things about her character is that she is a mom, and some of the decisions she makes about sort of experimentation are directly linked to that. And I feel like that's something that we see a lot, maybe not in this capacity as Frankenstein, but it's like it would have been interesting to see female Dr. Frankenstein without that. So that's what I thought it was going to be. And then, well, I didn't even think that initially. I was just like, oh, they're going to go this route. So I was a little disappointed in that, but I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. And I'm trying to remember who else was in it. That was James Purefoy was in it. So, and the lead is Helen McCrory. And Benedict Wong was in it too. So yeah, it was interesting choice. And then the last film that I saw for the month was Alita, Battle Angel, which is based on the manga, which I did finish reading last year. Yay! So another book to film adaptation that I've seen now. And this was actually quite, I don't want to say fun. It was good, and I like seeing female lead in an action movie. It is a little strange because it is like a sort of CGI version, and is it cyborg? Is that what they say, cyborg? But I will, and I did like, I was impressed with how much of the story of the manga they got into one film. I will say that. Although I think it might have only been sort of like the first 3 volumes. It wasn't the whole 9 volumes of the original, like the ones that I read, which are from like the 90s. But still, it felt like one story. So that was really good. But I gotta say, I found some of the action a little bit disturbing because there's a lot of cyborgs, and there's a lot of cyborgs that are fighting each other, and there's a lot of limbs and stuff that go flying, and so the level of violence was high. That being said, it totally matches the manga, like without question. But like given that I watched this on Disney, I don't remember what it was rated. But it just was a bit startling. And I find for myself, I do find that, like in particular, I find cyborgs scary, and robots. So there is sort of like the double element there, but I do find it disconcerting to see, people being, whether or not they're human or cyborgs or animals, like that level of violence and, loss of limb and stuff. Disturbing. So, but this, and also, so Christoph Waltz was in this. Jennifer Connelly. I was surprised at the cast. I didn't know anyone who was in this going into it, but I am glad that I finally saw it. So those are the 8 films that I saw in the month of January. I don't know which one is my favorite. Well, Matrix is hard to beat, to be honest. Matrix and Ophelia, those were both really, really good. But I think I'm really happy with my choices, and this whole idea of going back and forth, like just watching sort of like whatever, and then being like, okay, and then getting a little bit more intentional, and then sort of going back and forth on that, like I did this month with watching films with a female lead. I found that was really successful, and I'm really happy I did that, especially because I feel like if I let it go too long, it's sort of harder to pull it back to being a bit more even. And as I saw with Monster Hunter, like Mila's like, I don't know, like I still would say it's a dual protagonist film. Let me know if you've seen Monster Hunter. Do you consider that a female protagonist film or a dual male-female protagonist film? Maybe it's just because like Tony Jaa is so awesome. I don't know, but I love Mila too. Like I will watch anything that she is in. Anyway, so those are the 8 movies that I watched in January. Let me know, have you seen any of them? Do you have a favorite film that you saw in the month of January? Have you made film goals for the year? I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, thank you so much for watching.